Good morning, everybody. Today is the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And so we ask you to join us in listening to the Gospel of St. Matthew and reflecting on his message. At that time, Jesus exclaimed, "I give you praise to God, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. For although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you have revealed them to the little ones. Yes, Father, such has been your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wishes to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden light." The Gospel of the Lord. This Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is a very popular devotion, and the symbol of it strikes me as something that I sometimes confuse with Valentine's Day. Not that I get candy or flowers today particularly, but the emotional aspect of it. Feel all good and warm. The Sacred Heart is the burning love of God for us. And yet if we don't go deeper and reflect, we miss the message. It's God through Jesus giving himself to us. God who calls himself love shows us how he loves us with his unconditional love, his compassion, his patience, his healing. All of those are given to me. I can't earn them, they're gifts. And unless I really reflect on that and take that into my heart, I don't really understand. I am tempted to leave the Feast of the Sacred Heart as a Valentine's Day from God. I don't really have to get involved. I just have to explain or reflect back that I love you too. But Jesus asks us to do more. He asks if I believe this gift, if I accept it, then it means I approach everything in my life with that understanding of God as love. And that's why the end of the gospel makes more sense when he says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest." Life is challenging. It's mysterious. I don't have answers. I don't have answers to the virus. I don't know when it's going to end. I don't know anything of that. I don't know when we're going to be able to respond as a country to the challenges of what we profess to believe. But the fact is that it's a challenge each day. And if I'm a believer in the Sacred Heart of Jesus and its message, then I try to embrace all of those challenges and questions and mysteries that comprise life with a faith in God's presence and love in me and in everyone with whom I come into contact. It's not easy. I think sometimes very difficult, because loving, whether it be God's love for me or my attempt to love other people, has to always be guarded against self-centeredness on my part. What are you going to do in return? By the only one that sends a card today? Don't you send me a card? I would imagine that might be Valentine's Day in many homes. I forgot. Oh my goodness, the end of the world. Well, the God that loves us as God. He doesn't ever forget. And it's always there, especially in those moments of confusion and pain and challenge, much of which we're living through now. I remember many years ago, I was going to a wake. And at this moment in my life, in my ministry, always reminds me of how it illuminated this particular passage in the gospel. The woman who was widowed and to whose the husband whose wake I was attending, it was a second marriage for both. And I had performed a second wedding. They both had children in their first marriage, and they met later in life. They had a good life. Not long, the last 2 years, he was suffering from cancer. And so she had asked me to do the funeral mass. I had it in my mind, and I must confess, I was trying to figure out what am I going to say. And when I got to the funeral home, she told me she chose this gospel that we just read. And I thought, So I didn't know what to do then. And I said, well, these past 2 years must have been a terrible burden, great pain, sacrifice. And she looked at me, and with a calmness that only comes from faith, she says, not when you do it with love. And I thought, there's the gospel. There's the message of the Sacred Heart. There's what we're supposed to do today. The love of God isn't some sugar-coated protection so that everything has happy ever after endings, but rather the challenge and the strength to embrace every day with its challenges, with love, with compassion, with faithfulness, to try to love the way we profess to be loved by God, totally and completely. It's my hope and prayer for you and all of your family today, that in the midst of all of the uncertainties and the challenges, all of the pain that some people are going through with sickness and in death, even in death, that we all are able to see the love, the God who is love in the middle of it, and to try to embrace the moment with that confidence that we're not alone, that we have the gift of God who is love, that is ours. The challenge, I think, in the gift is to use it, to take it, to let it infect us in a good sense, so that everything we embrace and touch this day has a reminder to us that there is God, and where God is, there is love. I hope your day is prayerful. I hope we continue to pray for one another, and I hope that this quarantine lifts so that we can relax and enjoy ourselves a little bit more than we've been. But so far, so good. We're all together, and we're all praying for one another.